Hello, everyone. You can see me trying to get my window properly set up there. So I once again want to apologize for the problems that we had this morning with the presentation. I think, well, actually, just to say, after you all left the live stream, it turned out that I couldn't just record the class as I was teaching it anyway, due to yet one more technical issue I didn't know how to solve. So what I did was just taught the class, and now I am reteaching it so that you can all get the benefit of seeing it. I really hope that you got a chance to watch this because there's some gorgeous music going on. The other, I think, good news is I have figured out how to both share my screen with my iPad and also not and also be able to play the videos. So I do believe that I'm going to be able to be back up and running properly next week, but I will be going into the school early, a couple days early, maybe at the end of this week, just to set it all up and do a test run. So on to the subject matter at hand. Our great opera duos are, and actually a couple of trios and a quintet are going to all revolve around the wonderful Norwegian soprano, Lise Davidsen. She is a young Norwegian dramatic soprano who is blazing a trail through the world of Wagner, Strauss, and other late 19th and early 20th century composers. She really does exhibit a purity of tone and just a grand size of voice that have caused her to be compared with people like Kirsten Flagstad and Birgit Nielsen, the really great Wagnerians of the post-war era. So she was born in 1987 and came to prominence after winning the Operalia competition in 2015. That takes place in London. She also that year won the Queen Sonja competition in Norway. She went on to debut all over the world with at all the great houses, and then made her Metropolitan Opera debut as Lisa in Tchaikovsky's Queen of Spades. But we're going to back up a little bit prior to that debut, because of course, now that we live in the world of ubiquitous video, there are things on YouTube that are even earlier examples of people who end up becoming professionals. And so it's just kind of an interesting way to see how a great voice develops. In 2008, she was still studying at the Grieg Academy in Bergen, Norway, and they did a joint production with the College of Primary School Teachers of Purcell's Dido and Aeneas, and Davidsen sang Dido. This is probably the only time that any of us will ever hear her singing early music, because her voice is just of such a size now that it's just not what it's suited for. But it's interesting to hear her doing this at the age of 21, when her voice was still developing, but nonetheless, boy, can you ever see how it rings head and shoulders above the other singers. You can really tell that she is bound for greatness. Now, the other singers are not necessarily people who are planning to become performers, stage performers, because they're doing this production with a teaching college as well, and the voices are lovely, but they are light and a little bit amateur sounding. And even though Davidsen's voice is not as fully developed as what we will hear in the later professional examples, it's a really interesting way to hear a young voice that is developing, stands head and shoulders above all the other singers around her, and really truly is bound for greatness. So I am going to just step away for a second. I just realized my iPad is not plugged in. I should plug in my iPad so I don't run out of electricity. But in the meantime, we will listen to and watch this excerpt from the first act of Dido and Aeneas. So you can see there that difference in the sound of her voice and the other voices, and how even though it is already, developing into a very large instrument, she really can move the coloratura and pop off the high notes quite nicely. So it's just kind of fun to be able to hear someone who is at that stage. And now, as we go on watching videos, we will see the comparison to a more fully developed voice. So her early European performances allowed her to really hone her skills. And in 2019, she was ready for her Metropolitan Opera debut. This was one of the most highly anticipated debuts of recent times. Stakes were really high, but by all accounts, she lived up to and even exceeded everyone's expectations. The New York Times said the soprano Lise Davidsen made a radiant debut at the Metropolitan Opera in The Queen of Spades on Friday evening, singing with confidence, power, and purpose, with both freshness and maturity. Ms. Davidsen, just 32, staked a precocious claim to the great Wagner and Strauss roles that require equal parts youthful flexibility and sheer strength. The stakes could hardly have been higher. Before she'd sung a note in public at the Met, the company had already announced that in the next 3 seasons she would appear as Leonora in Fidelio, Chrysothemis in Elektra, Ariadne in Ariadne auf Naxos, Eva in Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg, and the Marschallin in Der Rosenkavalier. So that really shows you the faith that they're putting in her to just hand her that slate of roles over 3 seasons without her even having sung her first role at the Met. So that's how much they believed she was the real deal. That article goes on to say Ms. Davidsen's voice is creamy in texture, but with a silvery shimmer that gives it a penetrating spine. The high notes sometimes feel just separate from the rest of her voice, with the tone narrowing into bright focus, but they emerge easily, and she has the comfortably low center of gravity of a singer who started out as a mezzo-soprano. And that is one thing that I had failed to mention was she really was training to be a mezzo-soprano and thought that's where her voice lay. But a teacher really believed that she had the top end to be able to be a dramatic soprano, and that turned out to be the truth. And so that combination of that richness in the low end plus the extension into the top is what gives her the ability to sing these great dramatic roles that have to just cut through big orchestras. Her acting also came in for equal praise in that article, and they concluded very expectantly, speaking of glories to come. So with this kind of reputation, there is no shortage of fine singers who are willing to pair with her. There's an Azerbaijani tenor named Yusuf Evasov, who shared her Metropolitan Queen of Spades debut. He has also been making quite a name for himself in the world of opera as a young dramatic tenor, and he is playing the role of Hermann, Lisa's lover, in this production. So the story goes that although Hermann loves Lisa, he is obsessed with finding out 3 cards that are known by an old countess, which will bring anyone all the luck in the world, and sort of turn you into a King Midas kind of idea. And Hermann goes so far as to kill the old countess, trying to get the names of what those 3 cards are out of her. And she appears to him in a vision after she has died, and she tells him what the 3 cards are. So he joins Lisa, hoping that she will run away with him. She realizes that he has been taken over by evil and greed, and they have an emotional parting. So at the beginning of this scene, Lisa is waiting expectantly for him to come, hoping that maybe things are better than she's fearing, but her fears end up being realized. And the way that the whole opera ends, he leaves her, he goes on to a casino to gamble, and he plays the first of the 3 cards that the Countess has revealed and wins an enormous sum of money. Second card, similarly. And then the third card, though, which is an ace, he plays, and the card, so it's not that he's playing the cards, he's predicting that they will turn up. He gets the first 2 right. And then he says the ace is the last one, and it turns out instead to be the Queen of Spades, where the opera gets its name. And so he feels that this is the Countess getting her revenge on him, having not told him correctly what the third card was, and that she, sort of representing herself with the Queen of Spades. And he is so distraught that he kills himself, and in good operatic fashion. And that's the end of the opera. So we're going to see this wonderful, actually listen to, and there's no video on this one, but we will listen to this wonderful Act 3 duet from the Metropolitan Opera's Queen of Spades. And again, it's Lise Davidsen's Met debut.
Забыты стенания и слезы, снова с тобой. моя, нельзя нам медлить, часы бегут, готова ли ты? Бежим.
Куда бежать? С тобой холодно света.
Куда бежать? Куда? В игорный дом.
Маша, что с тобою, Герман?
Там груды золота лежат, и мне одному они принадлежат.
Герман, что ты говоришь? Опомнись.
Ах, я забыл, ведь ты еще не знаешь 3 карты. Помнишь, что тогда еще я выведать хотел у старой ведьмы? Упрямая, сказать мне не хотела, ведь нынче у меня она была, и мне сама 3 карты назвала.
Слушай, ты любил.
О нет, зачем? Я только поднял пистолет, и старая колдунья вдруг упала. Пришел, чтобы силой узнать от тебя про 3, 7 туза.
Умел ты, и все-таки твоя, бежи, идем со мной, спасу тебя.
Да, я узнал от тебя про 3, 7 туза. Оставь меня, кто ты? Тебя не знаю я. Прочь!
So wonderfully dramatic music. You can hear the similarities to Eugene Onegin that we listened to last week. Tchaikovsky has this wonderful ability to write the most beautiful, heartfelt melodies in the loving moments, and then incredibly dramatic stuff when the tension really gets ratcheted up. And it's also then, here's really interesting. So she was 21 in that first clip that we saw of Dido. And now at the age of 32, you can just see how much the voice has really, really blossomed and what control she has over it. And what a beautiful sound that she is making. So she received so much praise from so many quarters. The Met's Peter Gelb is one of many with effusive praise for Davidsen. He described her as being in a league of her own. Covent Garden's Antonio Papano recalled a rehearsal in London for Wagner's Ring. When she opened her mouth, we were all stunned, he said. The voice has a light in it. Esa-Pekka Salonen remembered making her first recording, saying, when she sang the first phrase of the Tannhäuser, the orchestra kind of collectively dropped their jaws. Did that sound really come out of a person? And I don't know if you know too many orchestra players, but they tend to be a fairly jaded lot and not ones to just fall for any singer who walks through the door. So that's really quite something that these orchestra members are really noticing, the sound that she makes. Katharina Wagner is the Bayreuth director and great-granddaughter of Richard Wagner, the great man himself. She said she has a unique carrying voice. Even the quietest and the finest piano of her voice can be heard in every corner of the auditorium, and every forte floods the audience. It is also obvious that even more important vocal parts will come in the future. Peter Gelb has also decreed with no uncertainty that she will be the next great Brunhilde and that the keys to the Met are hers. Now, this is just a short, about 2-minute promotional video of about the debut recording that she did with the conductor Esa-Pekka Salonen of the Strauss Four Last Songs and some Wagner arias. And this is just, you get to hear her a little bit and hear his reflections about her.
The recording session where we recorded some Strauss songs and a couple of Wagner moments with the Philharmonia with Lise Davidsen last year was really memorable. And the moment Lise sang the first phrase, everybody's jaw dropped in the orchestra. I've never seen this kind of thing before. I've seen lots of things, but this was completely unique. It was like, can this sound come out of a human? Because it was so full, it was so rich, so perfect. And it's more than that. She's a very, very thoughtful artist, constantly searching for the perfect expression, for the truth. And it's never about her in a very interesting way, because it quite often you would imagine if you have a voice like that and you have a presence like that, you have musicality like that, it would be very easy to treat music as a vehicle to kind of display your own talents and your ego. But in the case of Lise, it's never that. The voice is only a tool to express the depths of whatever the composition has. And of course, at the end of the day, this moves people more than any kind of flashy display or whatever. Because you know that she means what she's saying.
So if you don't know those Strauss Four Last Songs, they are really worth listening to. I haven't heard her recording yet. I've cherished my Jesse Norman recording for decades now. And to me, that was just kind of, it was her and Kurt Masur, and one of the most just perfect recordings of that music. And I actually also have the honor of having a CD. It's the one from the first pressings of the CD when they made a mistake. The orchestra is called the Leipzig Gewandhaus, Leipzig, And on that first pressing, they made a mistake and they called it the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra. And I have that CD with the Leipzig Orchestra instead of the Leipzig Orchestra. So that's one CD I'll never get rid of. So, having made her debut at Bayreuth as Elizabeth in Tannhäuser, she went on to sing Sieglinde in a concert performance due to the pandemic of Die Walküre in 2021. But previous to that, in 2020, she debuted the role of Sieglinde in a fully staged performance at the Deutsche Oper in Berlin with Nina Stemme as Brunhilde. And again, the reviews stated as Sieglinde Lise Davidsen delivered perhaps the evening's most captivating performance with a voice that seemed to grow more secure and full-bodied as it moved up to the higher notes. And her physical performance was hardly less impressive, moving convincingly from despair to hope to inflated passion in the first act, but rendering the madness of the second act with a refreshing lack of hysterical mannerisms. And her presence, by the way, is quite impressive as well. She's about 6 feet tall. So that's perfect for somebody singing all those great Wagner heroines. So I had meant to make a little correction on this slide before I started the video, and I forgot. But in Act 3 of Die Walküre, after Siegmund has been killed at Wotan's behest, Brunhilde has rescued Sieglinde, Sigmund's both wife and sister, and taken her to the home of the Valkyries. She has disobeyed her father Wotan in this, and so she's in for that punishment where he makes her fall asleep on the rock surrounded by fire, and only a great hero will be able to rescue her from that. Sieglinde is depressed at the beginning of this section and only wishes to die, but this is transformed when she's told that she's bearing, and this is my mistake, she is bearing Siegmund's son, who will be named Siegfried. And the Valkyries work out a plan for Sieglinde to flee as Wotan is advancing in his wrath. And this is sort of lovely to see her and Nina Stemme singing together, because Nina Stemme has been the great Wagnerian of this past era, and she's not in any way past planning to retire. I don't think anytime soon, but it is kind of interesting to see someone who's been doing it for quite some time, and then someone who is just new coming on the scene. So this is that Act 3 section in Die Walküre. So we really hear some powerful voices there. I love that O herzliches Wunder, the moment just towards the end there, where that moment where Nina Stemme was pretending to be playing the piano, and that the melody that Lise Davidsen was singing, it's just so glorious the way the voice soars up, and yeah, one of the really beautiful things that Wagner knew how to do. Now, in 2021, Davidsen debuted the title role in a concert performance of Leos Janáček's Jenůfa in Amsterdam. In the story, an unmarried Jenůfa is pregnant with her lover Laka's baby. She's hoping to rush their wedding so that no one will find out that she's pregnant, but he is enjoying the delay as a taunt to Jenůfa's stepmother, the religious leader of the community known as the Kostelnička, who is unaware of the pregnancy. Also, as a taunt to Jenůfa during a quarrel, a fight that they're having, Laka, who is always playing with a knife, comments that if it weren't for his rosy cheeks, for her rosy cheeks, no one would love her. And in a moment of anger, he actually slashes her face. So she's recovering from this disfigurement at her stepmother, the Kostelnička's home, and has the baby. And so now Kostelnička knows about it, but no one else does. And Kostelnička is worried about the dishonor that could come on the family if the townspeople find out about this child born out of wedlock. So, thinking she's doing the right thing, she actually drowns Jenůfa's baby in the river, telling her that the baby died of a fever at a point where Jenůfa was unconscious. Laka and Jenůfa reconcile, and in the last act, their wedding festivities are interrupted by someone who has discovered this dead baby in the river, bringing the baby there. And Jenůfa recognizes the clothes, and the Kostelnička then has to confess her crime. And she's going to take the responsibility for this action. But Jenůfa doesn't want her to face any punishment. She forgives her and she begs for mercy from the townspeople. And then as the Kostelnička and the townspeople leave, in this final scene, Jenůfa and Laka are left alone, dreaming of a better life in the future. It's an amazing story of forgiveness and redemption. And Janáček's music is just beautiful. He's a wonderful orchestrator. He gets beautiful colors out of the orchestra, and he uses a lot of very Czech rhythmic language rhythms as well as Czech folk songs. So he's a composer, and it came up in class today that another opera that he wrote called The Cunning Little Vixen will be playing at the Met not the Met, the COC in this coming season. So if you like the sound of Janáček, that would be worth seeing. I know I will be there. Again, those beautiful soaring melodies, incredible orchestral colors, and hearing her voice with that. It's a Dutch mezzo who played the Kostanichka and a British tenor playing Laka, just the way her voice goes with both of those other qualities of voices. Very beautiful. So now this is a little thing that we didn't do in class today. I realized in class that I had a bit more time than I expected, so I've thrown in a couple of other goodies in this presentation. And so Davidsen's busy 21-22 seasons at the Met included a beautiful performance as Eva in Die Meistersinger von Nuremberg, probably my favorite of Wagner's operas. It's his most tonal and comical opera, although there are love stories in there as well. It was written as a response to the criticism of the hyperchromaticism of Tristan, which was the opera previous. And in fact, there's a character in Die Meistersinger. He's kind of the town fool. His name is Beckmesser. And the name is almost just a little bit off from the name of the German newspaper critic who most severely criticized Tristan. So it was a nice little way of Wagner getting back at him. So Eva is the beautiful woman who is loved by a much older Hans Sachs, and who will marry the man who can sing the best prize song in a competition that they have. This man who sings the best prize song turns out to be Walter von Stolzing, and the two of them really do fall in love. But before she marries him, she tells Sachs how fond she is of him and how much he has meant to her throughout her life. Sachs, they've never had a relationship as such. He's known her since she was a little child, but he's always just had kind of a soft spot for her, and you could say a love for her. So he knows that not like there's any chance of a relationship with Eva, but he's still pained to know that she will be moving on. So there's this lovely aria that she sings, O Sachs, mein Freund, O Sachs, my friend. It's not a duo as such. She's the only one who sings in it. But Michael Volle, who is the one playing Hans Sachs here, is a really fine actor. And I find the way that he portrays the mix of conflicting emotions that Sachs is going through, even though So one thing I didn't make clear there is, although she loves Walter, the contest hasn't happened yet. She has to marry whoever wins the contest, and she doesn't know yet that Walter is going to win. So that's why she's distraught there at the end, because she hopes, but she's worried that she might have to marry somebody that she wouldn't want to. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful singing in that solo. And now we're going to hear the majority of the great quintet in Act 3. When we were listening in class today to the great trio from Der Rosenkavalier, which is really one of the most beautiful bits of vocal writing ever, I said to the class how this quintet in Meistersinger is, to me, like these two pieces are kind of right up there with each other. As far as the story is concerned, in Act 3, the young apprentice David has been given permission to marry his beloved Magdalena. Eva and Walter are going to marry as well. Sachs, who is alone in life, has been a mentor to all of these young people, and he's wistful about the situation. He's going to be, even more alone, and yet he's happy for them. So each of them sings about their emotions in this soaring quintet that I think, like I said, stands side by side with the Rosenkavalier trio as one of the most beautiful examples of masterful vocal writing. And the voices just weave in and out, and ultimately it's Davidsen's voice that soars above them all. And I'll tell you a little story. We when I was in the Westminster Choir, we did Meistersinger at the Spoleto Festival in Italy, and the festival there, the opera house, rather, is an old opera house built in the 19th century. Caruso sang there, and it's that traditional horseshoe kind of shape. And it because it's such an old opera house, it doesn't at all have the kind of backstage and the room for sets and all that kind of thing that a more modern one would. So what they do at Spoleto, at least in those days, I don't know if they've changed anything since I've been there, they would just basically store all of these sets out in the alley just beside the theater. And then when set changes need to happen, they would hire all these men from the town who would be there to, grab the sets, run them into the theater, put them in place, take other ones out, and so on. And if you were anywhere on the stage at one of these big scene change moments, you just had to flatten yourself against the back wall so that all this scurrying could go on. And in the opera, after this great quintet, there's a big orchestral interlude, and then a scene opens in a great forest where the contest is going to begin. And so during that orchestral interlude, all the sets have to be changed from that little house that Walter or rather that Hans Sachs lives in, to this great meadow. It's really more of a meadow than a forest. And so, of course, because they can't just fly the sets down like you would in a modern theater, these guys are scurrying in and out, and even having to hammer them in place all the while the orchestra is playing. And of course, it all has to be done. They must have the set up and ready to go when the curtain is ready to go up, and it has to go up when the music gets to that particular spot. So I used to always stand backstage to hear this quintet because I loved it so much. And then I would flatten myself against the back wall while all of this crazy scurrying went on. And then I was ready to make my entrance as one of the apprentices in this Meistersinger in the song contest that follows. So it's always one of my favorite memories, from the beauty of this music to then just the craziness of all these people running around trying desperately to get the stage ready for the next scene. So the Times again praised Davidsen, saying that her voice is luminous when soft and startlingly big at full cry. Her soaring embrace of Sachs and sublime starch to the quintet that follows in the third act aroused only excitement about the remarkable Met season she's embarking on, with the title role of Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos and Chrysothemis in his Electra to come. So this is we don't hear quite the beginning of the quintet, but we kind of get the best part of it here. So that's just a little chunk of it. This is from an official YouTube clip that the Metropolitan Opera puts out. They tend to kind of cut them in this way, I think, so that people don't pirate them, but gives you just a sense of the beauty of that music, and again, the beauty of that voice that just can soar above it all. So during this 2021-22 season, Davidsen sang the title role in Richard Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos. Oops, I realized my heading is wrong there as well. She stated she was thrilled to be wearing the same crown that Jesse Norman and so many other great sopranos had worn over the years there at the Met. So in the story, after being marooned on Naxos by Prince Theseus, whom she thought was her beloved, Ariadne finally finds love with the god Bacchus. And when he arrives, she thinks it is Theseus, but then realizes that this is this kind of new guy on the scene, and they go off together to be a god and goddess together. So in this production, she was paired with Wagnerian tenor Brandon Jovanovic, who is really making a name for himself in this world as well. Again, it's one of these official Metropolitan Opera clips, but it gives you a portion of their love duet. And again, just the beautiful singing. and off they go to the world of the gods. Now, although this Jovanovic, this tenor, is getting rave reviews for his various performances, it still makes me miss Ben Heppner like crazy. When he was in his prime, boy, he could sing that. Same with the role of Walter von Stolzing in Die Meistersinger, which the great song that he sings, what's called the prize song. That's the song that won Ben the Met Opera Council auditions and the Birgit Nilsson Prize, and really launched his international career. And there was just such a sweetness in his voice, although it was so huge. I do miss it. So now I have the proper heading on my slide, because then in 2022, Davidsen returned to the Met to sing the role of the Marschallin in Richard Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier. And it's kind of fitting that, my AirPods are running out of juice. I have another pair. I'm going to go get them. It's fitting that this production of an opera, which is a meditation on the passing of time, was first created for Renee Fleming as at the end of her career, singing the Marschallin, and is then now being revived, and the role is being assumed by Davidsen at the beginning of her career. So a real life passing of the torch, as well as in the opera. So the story, this middle-aged princess, Marie-Thérèse, who is known as the Marschallin, this is the title given to a field marshal's wife, has a younger lover in the Count Octavian. And when her loutish country cousin, Baron Ochs, decides that he wants to marry the beautiful Sophie, Octavian is dispatched as the Cavalier of the Rose to deliver this silver rose on behalf of the Baron to Sophie, which is sort of a tradition in this story, that the suitor delivers has the rose delivered to the person that he wants to marry. And of course, it's love at first sight for the young couple. And then there's all kinds of mix-ups and shenanigans and fun, and also some beautiful loving moments. But as it all comes to an end, the Marschallin wisely accepts that it's time for her to let Octavian move on, and she gracefully relinquishes him to Sophie. So this is the Act 3 trio, and again, along with that Meistersinger quintet, these are my top two in all of opera in terms of ensemble music. And Strauss even wanted it sung at his funeral, which it was. And it was conducted by a young Georg Schulte, who talked in his memoir about how they were all crying so much, and the various singers would break down, cry, get themselves back together, carry on. There is a YouTube video of his funeral, and it's rather amazing, because although he died, I think, in 1949, but he was born in the middle of the 19th century, and the funeral looks like something out of the Habsburgs, or it looks like something out of the era of empires, and of a dead world, a dying world. But it's as a historical artifact, it's kind of an amazing thing to see. If I can find it, I'll send it along with the links. So the scene moves on to an exquisite duet that is sung by Octavian and Sophie as the Marschallin and Ochs leave. And then there's a lovely comic moment at the end with a page boy that ends the opera, reminding us that even though this is a love story, it's a comic one at that. And in this music, you hear the beautiful voices, just what Strauss does he loved the female voice, and he loved to let one voice top the next one, and the next one go above, and the next one go above. Just as soon as you thought you've heard the highest note possible, you hear an even higher one. And he was also a brilliant orchestrator, and the colors of the orchestra are so beautiful. And you see just a little bit at the end with that page boy of what, some of the comedy that had been also part of this opera. Strauss was very much a composer in the mold of Mozart, and he was almost like a second Mozart in the sense of being able to write these kind of comic and yet touching pieces of music. So in this version, Davidsen is joined by Samantha Hankey, who is a really wonderful leading young mezzo on the scene these days, and then Erin Morley is Sophie, and she had a breakthrough moment stepping in at the last minute as Sophie for the entire run of the 2013-2014 Rosenkavalier at the Met. And then she also was the Sophie who performed it with Fleming in the premiere of this production. Now, this is the Met production, but it's not from the Met's official website. It seems by this Eurovision that we see here. It was broadcast on European TV. I sort of found it online. I think somebody put it up who shouldn't have. And unfortunately, the video and the audio are just slightly out of sync. So you'll see sometimes somebody's mouth opens, but their singing doesn't happen till a few beats later. So I've put in the captions an M for the Marschallin, an O for Octavian, and Sophie, an S for Sophie. And Marschallin is in the middle of this as we look at the screen, Octavian on the left and Sophie on the right, just to sort of help you to distinguish the voices. And then in the trio, the text is very much a sort of a summary of what's being said, because you just can't get all that text, three people singing at the same time, onto the screen. But it's enough to give a sense of what they're singing about. So this is a bit of a longer clip, but I absolutely love this. So I hope you do too.
Sind alter so, die jungen Leut.
Oh boy, beautiful and delightful all at the same time. Yeah, just it's a wonderful opera. It'd be lovely if we would get a production of that in Toronto sometime soon. Now, that's where we ended the class, but I actually had more time than I expected, which is why I've sort of added those couple extra clips so far. And there's one more from this amazing sort of opening run of shows that Lise Davidsen did at the Met, again teaming up with Nina Stemme in Richard Strauss's Elektra, which is Richard Strauss. Those first two operas, Salome and Elektra, were expressionistic and crazy, and the music is just as wild as anything you ever heard. And then he kind of turned it around and started writing all these charming sort of drawing room and sort of operas about social conventions and mores and things like that. And he was equally successful at both sort of styles of writing. But here we hear Strauss at his most sort of enfant terrible guise as a composer. So Davidsen plays Elektra's younger sister Chrysothemis, and Nina Stemme, of course, plays Elektra. And again, Davidsen received rave reviews. The Times said Davidsen as Elektra's sister Chrysothemis gave her best performance at the Met this season. Typically a better actor through her voice than her physicality. I kind of disagree with that, but anyway, here she carried as much character on her sorrowful face as Stemme did in her eyes. Relaying the news that her brother Orest had died, thrown and trampled by his own horses, Davidsen let out a chilling wail, not for the last time in the evening. Originally trained as a mezzo-soprano, she had a full-bodied lower range that is just as thrilling to witness as her, I think that might be supposed to say, incandescent high notes, and a commanding softness in more conversational moments. So at this point in the story, Chrysothemis has heard that their brother Orestes has died. She's bringing the news to Elektra. Turns out Orestes didn't die, and he will return later in the opera. But at this point, they think, Chrysothemis thinks he's dead. Elektra, who is hoping that Orestes and Chrysothemis will help her to kill her mother, Clytemnestra, in vengeance of her father's death, just refuses to believe that this could be so. And so it's just this wonderful moment of confrontation between the two sisters, one of many that they have. Chrysothemis gets some really beautiful sort of there's one lovely scene where she's singing about how she would just like to be married and be a wife and have a normal life and not live in such a crazy messed up family as the one that she does. But here, both Chrysothemis and Elektra are at their fiery best, and I think Davidsen and Stemme rise to the occasion.
Stemme
So you can just hear the drama and the angst that's in that music, and it's one of my favorite operas ever. I love Electra, but it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. So that is our class, and I hope, again, I do apologize for this morning's mix up. I do think that things are going to be on track, even with my iPad, but I will be in at the school later this week to be sure of it, so that we can get next week's class up and running at the right time. It's going to be our last class, and we're going to listen to two new young tenors that who are also basically have been given keys to the Met. A young French-Swiss tenor named Benjamin Bernheim, who does sing the Italian repertoire, but is also really specializes in the French repertoire, like Manon and Faust and all those wonderful French romantic operas. And the other one, Robbie Di Tommaso is a British, young British guy, but of Italian descent, and he sings all the Alfredos and the Rodolfos and all that bel canto repertoire, and does it really beautifully. So we'll finish off with them and some of their singing partners. And I was saying at the end of class today how it is kind of nice, most of this series we've been listening to the greats of a bygone era. It is nice to see that there seem to be some great voices who are coming through the pipeline, and that we're not going to be at a loss for hearing wonderful voices in the years to come. So thank you very much once again. Thank you so much for your patience, especially the people online who weren't able to see the class live. But I hope this will make up for it, and that you will enjoy it. So everybody enjoy your week, and I will see you next week.